It's like this. I saw Shadow and Blaze in the thumbnail, and I realized it was a Beware video, so I had to react to it. So let's just get into it.
What if Knuckles and Silver fused together into a single character? What about Amy and Blaze, or Shadow and Blaze? What would these fused characters look like?
Now, I'm gonna need an explanation because I'm pretty sure last video he said fusions, like these fusions could only happen if like the fusing parties like have like a strong relationship or at least met each other a decent amount of time. So I want to see how he's gonna apply these fusions, because Shadow and Blaze, they definitely haven't seen each other enough times to like, you know, be able to fuse. So that's if, you know, it requires that.
Would their new powers be, or their personalities? Today I'm going to be exploring more untapped potential of fusion within the Sonic franchise, including combinations for Sonic, Shadow, Infinite, and more.
A three-way fusion, that would actually be kind of cool. That'd actually be kind of cool. A three-way fusion.
Really awesome pairings, including my first ever three-way fusion.
I just said three-way fusion, wow.
Definitely be sure to stick around for that. And if you have any ideas for fusions I don't mention here, be sure to tell me down below. Some of these concepts today were inspired by your comments. First up, one I know you guys want to see, Shadow and Infinite. But before I get into that, how does fusion work in the Sonic world? I covered the concept pretty in-depth in my first video on this topic. Check it out if you haven't seen it yet. That video covers fusions like Sonic and Knuckles, Shadow and Silver. It's a banger. Anyway, in that video, I settled on Chaos Unification, a character using an emerald to chaos control into another character to fuse them together. Of course, this limited our potential fusions to characters who can use chaos control, and because—
Oh, it was characters that can use chaos control. I thought it was characters that can that have a strong connection. No, I'm pretty sure you said that as well. But if it requires like characters to be able to use chaos control, I'm pretty sure Blaze could use chaos control.
The Chaos Emeralds use what's inside your heart to create power. I added the stipulation that the two fusing characters needed to have some existing relationship.
Okay, so he did say that. What the heck? Okay, so he did say that.
Time around, I've got a better idea. What if there was a gem anyone could use to warp one character into another and fuse them together without having any prior relationship? Like the Warp Topaz from the IDW comics. With this, we can fuse anybody. Tails, Knuckles, Rouge, Amy.
The Warp Topaz was kind of cool. Sadly, they had to like destroy it, so.
Character is on the board now. We could fuse Vector with Jet if we wanted. So, with that out of the way,
how would fusing Vector and Jet even work?
Let's break these two down. Shadow the Hedgehog is the ultimate life form, genetically engineered from the DNA of the Black Arms, using the power of the Chaos Emeralds. He's immortal, and while he was created to help find a cure for Maria Robotnik's terminal illness, she was killed in front of him by Gun. Shadow is—
Maria was 12 years old, by the way. She was like 12 years old. She wasn't even in her teens yet and she died. That's sad.
A tragic character who began as a villain dead set on the destruction of humanity. After remembering his promise to Maria to protect humanity, he developed into an anti-hero that battles against his darker urges to create a safer world for all. Shadow is quiet and severe, egotistical, and with good reason. He's a nightmare to face in combat.
True.
With speed rivaling Sonic.
Like, you don't, like, Shadow's a lot more ruthless than Sonic when it comes to fighting. I don't want to fight Shadow.
His natural attunement to chaos energy lets him teleport and launch deadly blasts, and with an emerald he can activate chaos control, freezing time to decimate you before the world starts spinning again. Virtually everyone Shadow faces ends up with their ass kicked, and this includes Infinite the Jackal. Infinite was originally an unnamed mercenary, leader of the Jackal Squad. Considered the ultimate raider, he was undefeated by anyone he chose to steal from, which is why he set his sights on Eggman. But after
Homie got too cocky thinking he could take Eggman.
Coming in contact with the Phantom Ruby, the Jackal was shown his greatest desire, a world laid to ruin by his own hands. He decided to join Eggman to help make this vision a reality, but his plans quickly came to a halt when his squad was ruthlessly picked apart by Shadow.
So that's what happened?
Tried to fight back, but Shadow effortlessly thrashed him, instilling in him a madness rooted in an inferiority complex. He could never, ever be seen as weak again. So he allowed Eggman to genetically engineer him with a copy of the Phantom Ruby, transforming him into Infinite. With the Ruby's power, he could manipulate reality with his phantom illusions, create duplicates of himself, manifest armies of minions using the fears of others, generate entire worlds at his command, all with a single thought.
Homie really went edgy.
Infinite is
Homie really went edgy because he got his ass worked by Shadow. Man, everybody gets their behind worked by Shadow. Like,
one of the
this man went entirely edgy because of his first loss against Shadow.
strongest enemies Sonic has ever faced. So what happens when we fuse him with Shadow?
Because it's like this. Anybody who fights Shadow for the first time, they most likely are going to get their behind whooped. So
the new character is going to be very interesting because Infinite's whole inferiority complex comes from Shadow. How does that translate to a new character who is one half Shadow? And while Infinite is clearly incredibly insecure, Shadow has all the confidence in the world. This seems like a cocktail for madness.
You got one person, you got one being that's insecure, and then you got another that's fully confident. How do you make a fusion out of those type of two people? I tell you, it'd be very difficult.
Is mostly right. This is Mirage the Maimed. Mirage is utterly...
Now that doesn't even look like a full fusion. That looks like, that fusion literally looks like it has a bit of Shadow, a bit of Infinite, but it's like it's not a fully fused being. That's what this looks like. It kind of feels like Infinite is trying to fight off the Shadow part, and so Shadow is like, it doesn't look like a full fusion. It looks like it's trying to fuse away because of the mask.
broken, both in his mind and his abilities. He still has a full connection to the Phantom Ruby, meaning he can generate illusions and manipulate reality. But he also has his natural affinity to chaos energy, an unending well of power that can freeze time and blink him in and out of existence far faster than anyone could track. I chose the name Mirage because it's the perfect descriptor. Like a shadow, it's an aberration in the light that makes it harder to see the truth. Illusions, like the virtual reality that Infinite manipulates. He's a maned wolf. He has a spiky mane. That's about the best halfway point between a hedgehog and a jackal.
Yeah.
And like a Mirage, he's completely untouchable. Using Shadow's superior tactical mind and familiarity with supernatural phenomenon, Mirage uses the ruby to become intangible, untouchable by enemies, creating countless clones of himself, every single one capable of freezing time and teleporting anywhere in an instant. He's basically a walking extinction event. Or he would be if his mind was stable. Because Infinite hates Shadow and needs to be strong on his own, Mirage's mind is basically stuck in a constant feedback loop. I'm not weak, I'm stronger than Shadow. But I am Shadow, I'm the ultimate life form. But I hate him, I'm better than the ultimate life form. But that's impossible. Just like that, over and over and over again.
That's why it's like you can't, it's like trying to fuse. Like, you can't, like, fusing someone with someone that they hate is like, it's always gonna go bad.
His head. Mirage is essentially comatose. As soon as he appears, he stands completely still, stuck and unable to move.
Keep moving my camera, sorry, y'all.
That's not how he appears to everyone else. While frozen in place, his subconscious acts like a defense mechanism, using the Phantom Ruby to generate images of him as a terrifying, ruthless swarm of unending immortal copies. To anyone fighting him, all you would really need to do is find his original body that's not moving and knock him out. But no one ever finds that body. They're always too distracted by his terrifying projections. No one ever sees past the Mirage. Moving on to our next fusion, Shadow and Blaze.
Oh, let's see
I think
this.
they'll make an interesting pair for two reasons. They're both powerhouses, and they both tend to be reserved, keeping their emotions bottled up instead of wearing them on their sleeve. Blaze is the princess of the Soul Kingdom, in an alternate dimension only accessible using the Chaos or Soul Emeralds. She's all about duty and self-control, because her abilities could be extremely dangerous if left unchecked. Blaze can naturally produce searing flames to burn through anything in her way, and can blast them from her feet to accelerate up to speeds matching Sonic's. But unlike him, control and responsibility are always at the forefront of her mind, which for a while led to her repressing her emotions and desires as well. She serves as the regent and protector of the Soul Kingdom, which she's very good at because she's kind of a badass. So, you can see why I'm excited to fuse her with Edgelord Supreme. The combination of flame and chaos powers is just the tip of the iceberg. Both
That'd be a
Blaze and
busted
Shadow
character.
are defined by their responsibility and dedication to a cause greater than themselves. Although Shadow is a rogue agent that hates playing by anyone else's rules, while Blaze is obviously very diplomatic. The two's personalities really clash in that respect, so bringing them together could potentially be very explosive. But that's half the fun, right? This is Ashen the Civet. A perfect combination of Blaze's reserved demeanor and Shadow's ruthless efficiency. Ashen isn't a prince or a rogue, instead, he's an executioner. His entire identity centers around identifying problems and eliminating them as quickly and efficiently as possible. And if that problem happens to be a person, well, they're probably not going to be sticking around much longer.
Yeah, definitely not.
Shadow skates around using his air shoes, and Blaze essentially ballet dances as she floats on fire. So Ashen is extremely smooth in his movements and traversal, far too limber to let anyone catch him, and able to teleport out in an instant when things aren't going his way.
Yo, Chaos Control is a busted ability, I'm telling you that now.
Flame powers are enhanced by chaos energy. They burn anywhere, even in space or underwater, and they can't be extinguished unless he specifically puts them out himself.
So like
if
Amaterasu.
a single ember of his flames spins out of control, it could create an unstoppable wildfire that would raise the whole world with no way to stop it. I chose the name Ashen for that reason. Ash is dark like a shadow, the aftermath of a blazing fire. With the tragedies of Shadow's past and the burdens of Blaze's royal responsibilities, Ashen is what's left when you burn away every unnecessary part of a personality, leaving behind the dark, determined blackness underneath.
Oh,
How's that?
like the
Edgy
black.
enough for
Okay,
ya?
the black skin makes
Honestly,
sense.
we probably need a break from all the edge.
Yeah.
How about Amy and Blaze?
How would that
Amy
even work?
is, or rather was, a character all about energy and
Was,
emotion.
wow.
Nowadays, she's like this weird mom friend who lectures everybody about responsibility for some reason.
Yeah.
But originally, she was this very silly, over-the-top fangirl who was obsessed with Sonic. Her emotions guided everything, from puppy love for her crush, to empathy for anyone she met who needed help, to ridiculous anger as she crashed out on anyone who managed to get on her bad side, always accentuated with her gigantic Pico Pico hammer. For a long time, Amy was kind of the emotional core of the series. She reminded Shadow of his connection to Maria, she helped Silver reconsider his plan to kill the Iblis Trigger, and grounded Sonic when he was stressed about transforming into a werehog. In a world full of crazy hothead characters with tragic backstories and giant chips on their shoulders, Amy helps remind them what matters most. Well, when she's not demanding a wedding engagement out of Sonic. When we consider a fusion between Amy and Blaze, their differences become very obvious. Blaze keeps everything bottled up, while I don't think Amy could repress a single emotion if she tried. Beyond that, Amy is kind of, paradoxically, this ditzy girly girl, but she fights like a brute with a huge hammer, while Blaze is far more elegant and composed. So combining the two gives us some interesting conclusions. This is Kindle the Civet.
Okay.
Kindle has
what's
all
with the
of
civet?
Amy's
What's with these
strength,
civets? Like golly.
focused through Blaze's refined attitude and combat skills. She fights like a dancer, gliding on fire to land devastatingly powerful kicks and strikes from her ridiculously large hammer. Amy is very overtly feminine, outwardly emotional and expressive, while Blaze is very regal and reserved. So Kindle to be a balance between those. She basically feels very deep and powerful emotions, but doesn't express them verbally, instead through her actions, using something like dance or hammer swings as a method of expression. Instead of begging Sonic to go on a date, she just grabs him and takes him somewhere. Instead of reprimanding a villain, she just starts kicking the snot out of anyone evil. She's also extremely protective of anyone or anything that is weaker than her, or that she finds cute. And in the rare few times when she does talk, it's surprisingly blunt and to the point. Not that she's mean, but just overly sincere. There are no mincing of words. Kindle is also completely confident. She never has any doubts about her abilities or convictions, and for good reason. Few things hurt more than getting smacked with a giant flaming metal mace, and she's not slow to use it. I chose the name Kindle because to kindle a flame is to nurture and care for it. Essentially, how Amy's personality takes Blaze's by the hand as they become one new person, granting her confidence and direction. Now, I was going to do one final fusion with Blaze, combining her with Big the Cat. They're both purple cats.
I know they're both purple cats, but like, how would that even work?
cats. It just seems like common sense, right? Then I thought about it for a second. What would a fusion like that actually look like? A huge, strong cat with fire powers? Bro.
Incineroar.
That's just Incineroar.
Yeah.
So instead, I'll be looking at another Amy fusion, combining her with Surge the Tenric. Surge is my favorite
Amy and Surge? I actually like to see this one. Let's see.
character from the IDW comics, an innocent Tenric girl who was kidnapped by Dr. Starline, experimented on, and brainwashed over months to erase her personality and transform her into a replacement.
I mean, it's like, golly, Surge and Kid's backstory, like, they were just ordinary villagers until the professor Starline just said, hey, let me take these two kids and experiment on them. That's sad. That's why I'm like, I can't wait until Surge meets Shadow, because I feel like because they have like the same origin, like technically being like created from people or from other people. It's like, I would like to see how Surge interacts with Shadow.
Sonic. Surge is biomechanically enhanced, granted incredible strength and speed, and implants that let her generate and absorb tremendous amounts of electricity. She's like a living punk rock taser, and she acts like one. Obsessed with defeating and replacing Sonic, she's got a hero complex, but with none of the morality required for actual hero work. Instead, she lies, cheats, steals, and partakes in just a teeny tiny bit of domestic terrorism. And I'm gonna be honest, I absolutely love her for it.
Yeah.
Surge is such a fun character. The tragedy of her creation and how she was basically forced into a life of hating Sonic before ever even meeting him is fascinating. Of course, this is all tied up in a nice, neat little bow with her powers. Her electrokinesis is no joke. It can obliterate enemies faster than sound, and by absorbing energy like the Wisps, she becomes practically unstoppable.
Yep.
So what happens when we combine this absolute firecracker psycho supervillain with Amy Rose, the most emotionally expressive and loving character in the series? We get something like Thorn the Shrew. Thorn
that
is
makes sense.
bananas. I originally considered calling her Frenzy or Riot, both names that describe her completely uncontainable personality. Surge has rampant pangs of brainwashing, hatred, jealousy, ego, and madness, but she's got enough self-control to keep those emotions under wraps in order to achieve her greater goals. But Amy's expressiveness completely unravels all of those inhibitions. Thorn will pick a fight with anyone and everyone who looks at her sideways, stop talking mid-conversation because she's distracted by something smashable looking, and directly confront her enemies as soon as possible in any circumstance. There is no strategy or diplomacy with her, only throwing hands. I chose the name Thorn because she's like if you took Amy Rose and made her totally prickly, like a thorn on a rose. Also, I think it fits the pink and green color palette well. Speaking of the design, Thorn's bat is essentially Amy's hammer, but infused with Surge's electrical implants. She can pump her electricity through it to smack you with a strike full of shock power, or even use it as a lightning rod, driving the bat deep into the ground and using it to attract and focus her electricity from a distance for all kinds of tricky attacks. Thorn is a spiny shrew, I think a fairly believable halfway point between a hedgehog and a Tenric, but the more important detail about her fusion we need to discuss is her feelings for Sonic.
Oh, wow,
Amy
yeah, that's
is
actually
almost completely defined by how much she loves the blue blur, while Surge was literally Winter Soldier, Clockwork Orange brain-jacked into hating the guy with every fiber of her being. At first, I considered that their emotions would just cancel out, and Thorn would be totally neutral on Sonic and ignore him. But I think this is far more interesting. Anytime Thorn sees or even hears someone talking about Sonic the Hedgehog, she goes berserk. Her brain completely shuts off and she goes on a Hulk rampage, essentially becoming a mindless murder machine. The machine isn't actually directed at Sonic, mind you. The thought of him just stirs up such complex and conflicting emotions that her conscious mind shuts off, and her base instincts take over, which is exceedingly bad news for anyone in at least a 10-mile radius. Now, before we get into my first three-way fusion, I have one more unique combination that got me super jazzed when I first thought of it. Silver the Hedgehog and Knuckles the Echidna.
Okay, let's hear this one.
Two of my favorite characters that never get explored as much as I'd like them to be. First, Knuckles is your classic hardhead. He's sort of naive and tends to overreact with anger because he spent basically his whole life alone alone on Angel Island, all with the overbearing duty of protecting the Master Emerald as the sole survivor of his clan and species. Knuckles is a total bruiser. He loves to scrap and always holds his own with his incredible strength, but he's also got a handful of useful skills that augment his fighting prowess. He can use his quills to glide, and the spikes on his hands let him climb up walls and tunnel through the ground. While he is ignorant to a lot of the details of the outside world, he's not stupid. He's got a lot of knowledge about history, architecture, as well as the culture and religion of his people, which is why he has a knack for treasure hunting. Unfortunately, he rarely gets to engage in that hobby because he has such a strict code, his complete and total responsibility to defend his people's greatest treasure.
Yep.
Knuckles' sense of responsibility is the one common trait he shares the most with Silver. Silver is from a ruined future, a world obliterated by the endless flames of the rogue god Iblis. Much like Knuckles, Silver's youth was filled with loneliness, although he did occasionally have friends to help him, like Blaze. But his core ideal is that of hope. Hope for a way to save his future, to save the entire world despite the apparent hopelessness. And when he learned about the Iblis trigger from Mephiles, that hope was steeled into a ruthless resolve. Silver traveled back to the past to save the entire world, and even after the events of 06, Silver is constantly returning to the past to undo tragedies that leave the future in shambles.
Exactly, but this man constantly has to. What is his future not in ruin? Golly.
Whole life revolves
I've not
around
talked
being
that
the
much.
savior
Wow.
of the future, a responsibility he takes deadly serious. His missions are made easier with his incredible power, psychokinesis, a mental energy that lets him float, fly, and manipulate objects all around him by dragging them through the air. When Silver gets serious, he can tangle with Sonic or Shadow and toss half a skyscraper right at your head. His mind powers are greater than even Knuckles' physical strength, which is why I think bringing together these two pinnacles of brain and brawn might be absolutely incredible. This is Sentry the Tenric. Sentry is, as the name implies, the ultimate guardian. He's got Knuckles' dedication to protecting Angel Island and Silver's drive to save the future, all wrapped up in a single will that doesn't have time to listen to anybody.
The silver part right here just like makes the fusion like pop. Like it really stands out. Yeah, it stands out a lot.
In his way. He's a total powerhouse, physically a top-tier brawler with just his bare hands, and even stronger when he focuses his strength into his constructs. Instead of picking things up like Silver, Sentry makes objects out of hard light, sort of like a Green Lantern. Although, because he's half Knuckles, those constructs are pretty much exclusively a pair of gigantic hands, usually curled into fists, ready to pummel you into dust. These hands punch, smash, flatten, and grab, with a huge range and enough force to crack mountains apart. He can protect large areas without moving his feet from the spot where he's standing. That's another reason I picked the name Sentry. I almost went with Sentinel, which has a similar meaning, but he's completely dedicated to protecting what matters most to his mission at the time. Of course, this can make him sort of hard to deal with. If an ally disagrees with his plan for how to keep something safe, he's most likely going to start throwing giant hands instead of trying to talk it out.
Yeah.
That said, he's not a complete musclehead.
Good.
Knuckles is kind of a treasure hunting nerd, and when he's not on a mission, Silver can usually be found geeking out about how awesome the past is. So Sentry has a very strong, dorky obsession with architecture and ancient civilizations, and he'll start talking about it for hours uninterrupted if you manage to get him off track. Of course, when things get serious, he locks in harder than anyone, which makes sense because he also hits harder than anyone. And finally, the one you have all been waiting for.
Let's see
I
this
think I got
three-way
more
fusion.
comment requests for this than any other topic in the whole history of my channel. A fusion between
Yep.
Sonic and
I knew
Shadow and Silver. This one is obviously a giant undertaking. I need to take into consideration the powers, personalities, and quirks of all three of the Triple S trio. So
Triple
let's
S,
break it
hey.
down. First, Sonic. He is all about freedom and going with the flow. There have been a million threads on Twitter, so I'm sure you're sick of hearing about it by now, but he really is like the wind. Totally detached, a drifter, full of joy and whimsy and a little bit of attitude. Like when the strong gust of wind steals your hat off your head, that's Sonic. And his effortless motion and tranquility is represented with his impossible speed. He's perfectly kinetic, zipping and bouncing all over the place, whooping your ass with acrobatic breakdancing and cracking jokes the entire time. But beneath it all, Sonic is a hero, even if he doesn't think of himself as one. He cares about his friends and the lives of the innocent. He'll topple any tyrant that gets in his way, and will even endure boring or uncomfortable social situations if he knows that they will make his loved ones happy. Then we have Shadow, who is always the straight man to Sonic's lighthearted nature. He's overly serious, brooding in a cloud of angst, or mowing down the latest nuisance that gets on his nerves, either with his chaos powers or the nearest gun if he's in the mood to shoot something. He's always putting the mission first, his reason for saving and protecting others rooted in his personal promise to Maria instead of any moral obligation he feels. Shadow is selfish and very rarely a team player. I mean, the two people he tolerates best are the hot thief and the killer robot. Everyone else is just
man really said hot thief. You know what? Okay, we won't even.
too much for him because he's a loner at heart. And finally, Silver craves the connections that Sonic cherishes and Shadow rejects. He's come from a ruined time, desperate to rewrite reality. His every waking thought is about the state of the world and the potential for things to be better. Half the time that means he's deadly serious about fixing things, and the other half the time he's awestruck at how wonderful things used to be. His powers are symbolic. He interacts with the world by controlling things at a distance with his mind, the same way he has to perpetually view the world from a step back, considering how his actions might rewrite reality this time, and what the ramifications of those choices might lead to. But his endless determination always sees him through to the next future. And when we bring all three of these renegades together, we get the most powerful fusion across all of history. Nexus the Hedgehog.
Nexus, okay.
The Nexus is the point where all dimensions merge, where past, present, and future collide. All of Sonic's speed and agility, every one of Shadow's chaos abilities, the full force of Silver's psychokinesis. Every power is integrated perfectly in this, the ultimate fighter. Nexus' running speed is actually far faster than Sonic, because he's boosted by both Shadow's air shoes and the telekinetic force of Silver's mind. And on top of that, he can also teleport short distances, and his connection to Chaos Energy is so powerful, he can activate Chaos Control and freeze time even without a Chaos Emerald on hand.
That's
because
busted.
He's so ungodly fast.
If he can do that without a Chaos Emerald, imagine what he could do with the Chaos Emerald.
Anyone who sees him basically interprets it like he has clones. He moves so quickly that it looks like there are dozens of him all at once, virtually all the time. He's got Sonic's impatience with Shadow's asocial tendencies and Silver's tendency to get distracted by simple things, so during downtime, he's always having multiple conversations and performing multiple tasks all simultaneously, because he's so fast and so prone to do whatever he likes. But when he fights, things immediately go off the rails. Any enemy of Nexus is challenged right from the jump by what looks like an army. Dozens of him as he moves all around, making different attacks and throwing out taunts. The only beings in all of reality able to reliably match his speed would be higher dimensional entities or a creature using a super form. Anything else is completely hopeless. Of course, Nexus is ridiculously cocky and plays with his enemies way too much. Shadow's influence makes him almost cruel. He will drag out a fight long after he's won because he's having so much fun making the bad guys squirm and dance. And in the extremely rare instance he's actually challenged by a villain, he's still so full of himself that it doesn't matter. He will never stop cracking jokes and trying to goof off mid-fight. That said, he doesn't play when others are involved. If you threaten Tails, Rouge, Blaze, or anyone else important to him, he takes you out in an instant. You are getting pierced with a Chaos Spear or telekinetically crushed into the pavement at the speed of light. But even a fusion this powerful has its drawbacks. Shadow is an imperfect creation, and he requires inhibitor rings to keep his power in check. These rings aren't designed to hold such an incredible fusion together, at least not for long. Nexus can only exist for about 10 minutes before his inhibitor rings shatter and his energy explodes outward. This doesn't force him to defuse, but as this incredible energy leaks out, it is so massive that it threatens to shatter the earth beneath his feet. The planet can only survive a few seconds of this awe-inspiring release of power, so unless he's fighting up in space, Nexus is forced to defuse once his 10 minutes are up. But we all know he doesn't need anywhere near that long to clean up shop. Stay frosty.
Yep. Them fusions are busted. What the heck is this? Okay. Don't let me go back to the friggin'. Okay, whatever. Them fusions were busted, especially the last one, Nexus. Busted. Ah, God, I've been sitting here for a minute, so I feel tired. Well, those fusions were busted. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Check out more of the longer videos and the shorts videos. I'll leave the link to the original video in the description down below. Recommend me some videos to react to, some games to play, and with that, I'll see you next time. Woo.
You know we dancing for the win 'cause we can. We stand against all of them, you see my band. Watch it through the city, shake the ground. The cold walls coming down.